A Little Cloud's Dream by Zack Meyers. It was a misty morning on the mountain top, where the cool breeze carried the dew to settle on the tops of the mountain grass. The sun was just peeking over the top of the peaks, casting its rays down into the valley below. And here, the smallest little cloud, floating just above the top of the evergreen trees below, was just waking up. "I wonder," thought the cloud, "what it is to be asleep." For the cloud had never before had this thought. But upon waking up that morning, it realized it had just woken up. Therefore, it must have just been asleep. "That makes sense to me," it said out loud to itself. "I wonder if there are others who can help me with my search for sleep," it thought to itself. And it began floating along a small river that wound up to the very top of the mountain. Along this river there was a rabbit sitting on the edge of the water, on a rock, eating some greens growing on the shore. The cloud moved closer to the rabbit and said, "Excuse me, dear sir, but I wonder if you could, tell me where to find sleep." The rabbit looked at the cloud with a surprised look and said, "Well, goodness, everyone knows where to find sleep," he said as he stamped his foot. "It's right behind you all day until you get to the end. Then it's here." And with the final word, he jumped off into the trees and disappeared. The cloud, feeling not quite better on the whole after the strange words from the rabbit, felt sure he would find his answer sooner or later, and he floated on up the stream in pursuit of others to ask. It was not long before he came to an old dead tree that had fallen over the river, and on top of this tree, in the middle of the river, was a bobcat. The cloud floated down near the cat and said, Excuse me, sir, but might I ask you where I might find, sleep?" The cat eyed the cloud for a moment, and then sat upright and said, "Why, you can find sleep when you are tired, my little friend," turning his head from one side and pausing in thought. "And, well, once you find sleep, then it's on to your dreams, and that's the best part of all." At these words, the cloud found itself feeling a little strange, and wondering what the cat could mean by the word dreams. The cat stared at the cloud as if he could see right through it, and he very well might have been able to, for it was a very small cloud. And with its big eyes unblinking, it nestled down on the tree, and at last closed its eyes. The cloud stayed there, floating near the cat for some time, and then, realizing it was asleep, the cloud suddenly had a thought. "Oh, my goodness! The cat has found sleep! Well, then it must have been tired, and it must be doing that thing it called dreams. Well, I guess I'll have to ask someone else about that." And the cloud floated upstream again in pursuit of his answers. The day was wearing on, and the cloud had yet to feel it had understood sleep, or least of all, dreams. But it continued moving past tree and branch and rock and bend of the river. The sun had begun to set, and the cloud felt very sure it had done a poor job in finding answers to its questions. So much so that it floated up above the tops of the trees and began to cry. The tears of the little cloud fell down on top of a certain very old cedar tree, who looked up and saw the little cloud above him crying and crying. The old cedar waited a moment, then cried out to the cloud, "I say, you there, you look to be upset." And the deep voice of the tree startled the little cloud so much it stopped crying and looked down. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Cedar, sir. Yes, I'm crying. I don't know what to do. And it's getting late. I'm getting tired, and I still don't know what sleep is, and if it's going to hurt me when I get tired or not, and I have no idea what dreams are, and I hear they're coming for me as well. And the cloud burst into tears again. The cedar, being very old and wise, looked up at the little cloud and said very gently, "Don't worry, little one. I can teach you all you need to know about both, and it's not too late." And at this, the little cloud floated down lower to the old tree and waited for the answers it had been after all day. The old cedar looked at the cloud and began in a very matter-of-fact voice, "Well, you see, there are many things in this world. Some are fast and some are slow. Some live long and some live short. Some remember and some forget. But we all sleep." The little cloud seemed to relax a bit, and after a moment the tree went on. Sleep, my little friend, is the most normal thing there is, and it's nothing to be afraid of. We all find sleep each night, or during the day, for some. At this, the cloud remembered the cat, and finally felt better. The cloud then looked at the old tree again and said, "Then, what are dreams?" At this, the tree took a deep breath and replied, "Dreams are there when we sleep to help us." "To help us?" said the little cloud. "Yes, to help us with different things." Like what kind of things?" the cloud asked. "That is for you to find out," said the old tree, and with that he smiled at the little cloud and closed his eyes, just as the sun crept behind the mountain peaks. The little cloud, now being all alone, floated up into the sky above the mountain tops, and up higher and higher, until it reached the edge of the mist, and it saw the stars twinkling across the whole sky. The little cloud felt at last it had found a place to let sleep finally find it. The cloud took a deep breath and closed its eyes. The breeze blew around the little cloud, causing it to slowly spin. The temperature seemed to get colder and colder. The little cloud felt itself getting smaller and smaller. And then it was black, completely dark. The little cloud thought, "I wonder where all the light went." And suddenly, the entire sky surrounded the cloud, and all the stars were shining brighter than ever before. The world seemed to be a magical place, with little twinkling lights shining out at the most curious places, from the petals of the flowers, the bark on the trees, and under the mushrooms. Everywhere seemed to glow. It was quiet, and the breeze had died down to a gentle whisper. The little cloud thought of how beautiful its home in the mountains was, but then it wondered what other places there might be, and like a flash it was off, sailing faster than it ever had before, soaring, flying on the wind through the mountains and rivers, over plains and deserts, over top cities and houses of people all over the world. It sailed on through the grasses of the African plains, and across the glacier cliffs in the Arctic. It saw animals of all shapes and sizes, trees and bushes, and grass of all different colors and shapes. And then the cloud slowed down and moved low to the ground, and saw a small, tiny stream that looked and reminded it of the little river it once followed before it knew all that it had learned. The cloud stopped for a moment and thought about how the little stream was so small, much smaller than the first river. "But I wonder," it said, "would my tears help it grow?" And the little cloud, feeling sorry for the small stream, began to cry, and its tears flew down into the stream, and slowly it began to get larger. The stream turned into a river, and the little cloud, feeling the little stream would be fine at last, stopped crying. It then looked down and saw the little stream, now a river, was winding down and away. So the little cloud followed the river, picking up its speed once again. The river grew wide and large, growing more powerful as it did so, branching into small lakes and then larger lakes. The cloud saw all of this and continued on. The cloud thought of how it was just like the little stream, and was even now a part of the rivers and lakes it flew over. The little cloud picked up its speed again and flew lower to the surface of the water, feeling as much a part of the winding river as if it was the river itself. Then, suddenly, out of nowhere, the rivers opened up to a massive expanse, covering every direction the cloud went. And it felt strange. The waters reached out into the farthest places in sight. The glistening water, shimmering in the moonlight, twinkling like the forest and plants. The little cloud slowed down and looked down upon the waters. It could see its reflection in the water, and surrounding its reflection were 1,000,000,000 stars shining behind it. It felt as if it were among the stars itself, but also quite small among all of the universe. The cloud rose up higher to see the water below in a better way, and it went higher and higher. Still only water could it see from all sides. So the little cloud looked up into the stars above and took off at the fastest speed yet, rising up, 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 until it came to a sudden stop and rolled over, turning its eyes to the small blue planet down below. The little cloud looked down on its little home, the blue sphere twinkling in among the stars. It realized that the big mountains it lived on, the long, twisting rivers and lakes, the huge oceans and seas, and the entire massive globe itself were also only very small in the backyard of the cosmos, and the cloud felt peace. It slowly drifted down towards its home, moving in the direction of a very familiar mountain range it knew so well. And the moment the little cloud saw the particular mountains in sight where it called home, the sun crept over the top of the peaks, and the cloud awoke suddenly. It had all been a dream, and the cloud thought to itself, "My goodness, what amazing things I know now, and I am sure I know just what to do." The little cloud turned and saw the little river it had once began its journey on, and started at once up the current and upriver. It passed the rabbit and didn't feel sad or strange or unknowing, but rather it felt happy. And it went on, and passed the cat sitting on the same dead tree over the river. And the cat turned its head to follow the little cloud as it continued up the stream. The little cloud passed the grove of cedar trees and smiled, knowing the old tree had known all along the little cloud would find his answers. And as the cloud rose up the stream, as it was now a stream, and getting smaller by the minute, it at last came to a little hole in the mountainside where the water was coming out of. So the cloud rose up over the mountain top and came down to the other side, and was surprised to find the smallest little pond surrounded by beautiful flowers and grasses, and in a beautiful shade under another old cedar and several other trees of similar old age. And the clouds settled down above the pond, surrounded by the trees and flowers, in this secret mountain magical source of the river. The little cloud felt so happy to find the beginning of its very own mountain river, and in the most beautiful place in all of the world. The little cloud began to cry tears of pure joy, and filled up the little pond, becoming more and more a part of it, until at once it was nothing more. At least, it was not a cloud any more. It had become the pond in the magical mountain secret garden itself. And the trees around it called out, asking the little pond why it had chosen to stay there with them. And the little pond said, "I have seen the world, the whole world. I have seen the stars. I have gazed down upon the whole world and seen myself. And so I've come to where I feel most home, to stay with you and perhaps tell other little clouds my story someday." And with that, the little pond relaxed in the cool mountain breeze and the company of his new friends, waiting for the sun to warm its waters and send off new little clouds to answer questions of their own, and feeling at ease, knowing it would dream again that night. The end.